everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Back at it with another weekly video. Wanted to break down one of the more prominent aspects that are going to be taking place this week. Jupiter is retrograding back into the sign of Pisces. So I wanted to do a little bit of like a deeper dive and take you guys through the 12 signs, talk to you guys about what we've seen in this transit really over the last year and a half. Just a refresher on when we had Jupiter in Pisces recently, some stuff that I've noted, things that I've been thinking about. We're going to talk to you guys about the Sabian symbol, 29 degrees of Pisces. We're also going to pull some cards and talk about each and every one of the 12 rising signs. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer with an emphasis on taking a look at both the Sabian symbols, what it could mean evolutionary wise, and working with tarot as well for my predictions. If you like my content, make sure you give me a thumbs up, say hello, leave us a comment, let us know where you're tuning in from. Be nice to hear from you. Make sure you're subscribed. Okay, so we're going to take a deep dive, taking a look at Jupiter's retrograde back into the sign of Pisces. Very excited to see what this looks like. I'm going to give you guys first the date or the dates that we're going to be seeing this. So let's go ahead and scroll ahead to the 28th. So it will be on October 28th later this week that Jupiter will retrograde back into Pisces. Now, it'll only be there for briefly 2 months, but I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what has happened since we first saw Jupiter move into this sign. So first of all, what is Jupiter? What is Jupiter retrograde? What's going on with Jupiter in Pisces? Jupiter is a planet that is associated with everything big, right? Making things bigger. It's the largest planet in our solar system. Planet, I didn't say a star. A lot of people are going to be like, what about the sun? Also associated with Zeus. So if you're into mythology, Zeus or Jupiter is known as the god of religion, philosophy, mythology, and also is the king of all of the gods, son of Saturn, husband and brother of Juno, kind of strange. But in the sign of Pisces, Jupiter is known as being very generous, very ethical, and spiritual. It's very much about spiritual expansiveness, anything in regards to our psychic sensitivity, our dreams, our visions. And the sign of Pisces, the mutable water sign, right? Traditionally associated with Jupiter. So the traditional ruler for Pisces is Jupiter. The modern day ruler is Neptune. But this is an interesting transit. So we first saw, I'll take you guys through all of the different transits. Jupiter entered into Pisces, and that was May of 2021. So let's go back in time. Let's take a look here. And I'll go through a list of some stuff that's been happening since then. So it looks like it was May 13th. I remember exactly where I was when I was shooting the video for this transit. I was in New Orleans, and it was pouring rain, right? Jupiter, Neptune, Pisces, water. So May 13th is when we saw Jupiter first enter into this sign. Now, Jupiter changes signs about roughly once a year. So we see Jupiter go through Pisces once every 12 years. But this has been a really interesting transit because we have seen both Jupiter and Neptune in the home sign of Pisces. And Jupiter stayed in this sign really all the way up until December 29th. So it was kind of hanging out there off and on for a little bit more than 6 months before Jupiter moved into the sign of Aries. And then there was a retrograde, obviously. So I'm talking about when it first entered into this sign in 2021. But we saw Jupiter move through Pisces pretty swiftly. Okay, so it dropped back into Aquarius, fully into Pisces in the beginning of 2021. Then we see Jupiter come into conjunction with Neptune. Now, that was a pretty big transit. That was around April 12th. Yeah, pretty close here. There we go. April 12th, we saw the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. It was right around 24 degrees of Pisces. Also really big energy in terms of sensitivity, psychic sensitivity, spirituality, anything in regards to the oceans, water, exploration of space, and also anything that is in other realms. Pisces has connections with the subconscious state, sleep, altered states, anything in regards to psychic stuff, and spiritual phenomenon. Ghosts and paranormal stuff has to do with Pisces as well as Neptune. But this conjunction at 24 degrees was pretty significant because it kind of suggests that this is like a new turning point in terms of like our intuition, our sensitivity, what we're picking up in the ethers, right, from other people and from the masses. So really significant conjunction. We're not going to see that conjunction again in our lifetime. Actually having Jupiter and Neptune coming together, the last time we had this was in 1856, and we're not going to see this again until year 2188. So this is the last time we're going to see Jupiter and Neptune in the same sign in our lifetime. I think it's kind of cool to have experienced this and to see like the pros and the cons and how it's played out over the last year. I'm going to give you guys like a running list of some things that I've noticed that kind of remind me of Jupiter and Neptune in the same sign. But overall, just in general, like having Jupiter in Pisces, it doesn't know its limits, right? So usually Jupiter like wants to roam, it wants to have a lot of freedom. It's associated with the sign of Sagittarius, but when it's in a water sign, it's deeply emotional, sensitive, and very intuitive, very empathic. And we may also find ourselves in certain situations where we're feeling like we're just energetically absorbing everything like little sponges. There's been lots of mystical and magical things that have happened, like lots of like serendipitous situations, kind of being in the right place at the right time, and lots of things that have kind of happened, at least in my belief system, that's made me realize like there's something way beyond us that is interfering and intervening with our lives and trying to kind of help steer us in the right direction. Very lucky. Jupiter is associated with like luck and anything in regards to taking chances, and also like the bigger picture of what the future has in store for us. And I really like that as it's been in this sign, it's really taught me that there is, like I said, like a higher power that is at play in all of our lives. Now, Jupiter then left Pisces briefly and went into Aries, and this was around the end of December of 2022. There we go. Let's see. Oh no, excuse me. So it entered, getting my dates mixed up. May 13th, 2021, it entered into Pisces. December 29th, 2021. April 12th, 2022, it was at 24 degrees. And then it moved forward into Aries again, and that was in May of 2022. So many ingresses, sorry guys. So it entered back into Aries right around mid-May of 2022. Very different energy. Like when it was in Pisces, it was more otherworldly. It was like invisible. And I feel like a lot of people were like very, very, very sensitive. And we saw it in different emotions all the way across the board. Like I've noticed that there were lots of people who were like really freaked out and worried and like concerned about the world. I noticed that there were also lots of people who were like meditating, and they were very much tuned into needing time and space and isolation alone to better kind of harness and work with and channel those energies. And then I've also noticed that there's like lots of people who've kind of like lost their mind and just mentally or emotionally have had a very difficult time with those conjunctions. So once Jupiter went into the fire sign of Aries, it was like, boom, fresh start. And maybe you guys remember shortly after Jupiter went into Aries, we also saw Mars show up, and it was really incentivizing a lot of us on a personal, individual level to get motivated, to get active, to get hyped up, and more willing to take action wherever Aries was in our chart. So I feel like that energy right at the end of May was almost kind of like whiplash, where we went from like dreaming and sleeping in and, you know, kind of like hazy and relaxing and just kind of like out of it to like shot out of a cannon once Mars and the Moon and Jupiter all ingress into Aries in May. Okay, so we've had now for the last several months, Jupiter has been in Aries. So now the retrograde looks like it started in the sign of Aries somewhere in July. So it was right towards the end of July of 2022. So when Jupiter retrogrades, I mean, as with all retrogrades, we see much more of like an internal process, especially like the September going into October period has been really interesting because we saw so many oppositions to planets in Libra. We were learning a lot about relationships and partnerships and like how we have to actively participate and really reevaluate on our own personal goals and directions to kind of like better show up for other people and to be more authentic. That's something else I noticed. But yeah, we've seen Jupiter's been going retrograde since the end of July. Now we're going to see Jupiter drop back down into Pisces here, like I said, right around the 28th. And that is going to be later this week. Now, when Jupiter drops back down into Pisces on the 28th, only going to be there for roughly about 2 months. So right towards the end of December, we're actually going to see Jupiter leave again, and we'll move back into the sign of Aries really until the spring of next year, and it'll just move on through Aries and go right into Taurus. So the retrograde was actually all the way up to about 8 degrees of Aries. So if you have anything between like 28 degrees of Pisces and about 10 degrees of Aries, that's where you're going to see the most action. Okay, so the later degrees of Pisces, the first 8 or 9 degrees of Aries, you're going to see conjunctions that are going to take place again in the new year. And Jupiter will go direct on November the 23rd. So only going to go retrograde to 28 degrees of Pisces. And then on the 23rd of November, Jupiter goes direct. So that basically means the retrograde is over. Now, like I said, with retrograde planets, it's much more internal, but I feel like having Jupiter in Pisces, whether it's direct or it's retrograde, I feel like it's not going to make much of a difference because it's such a strong energy, and already it's in the same sign as Neptune. So it's very otherworldly. It's more about our dreams, about symbols and omens and our connection with the divine or our connection with a higher power or with ourselves. So yes, when a planet stations, you might notice right at the end of November that because Jupiter is stationing, it's got a little bit more power, but I feel like this is giving us the opportunity to kind of dip back into whatever we've been feeling, whatever we've been praying for, whatever we've been manifesting, visualizing, thinking about, or kind of creating behind the scenes, because this is a very private energy with both Jupiter and Neptune in the 12th. I also feel like this is very important because it's going to give us an opportunity to kind of raise our vibrations because Jupiter and Neptune in this sign are very high vibrations and are associated with like, you know, private spaces, healing centers, temples, churches, sacred sites, anything in regards to just being able to be hidden and be able to kind of practice something spiritually or religiously behind the scenes and to pray and kind of give this energy up to a higher power. Like I said, we haven't had this conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune since the 1850s, 1856 to be specific. And I went through just, you know, some historical pages just to kind of get an idea of like what was going on in the 1860s. Obviously, lots of stuff. We had some notable battles taking place in the United States. We had the first National Republican meeting in Pittsburgh. So I think that that's interesting. That was taking place. I don't think that was totally just connected to Jupiter and Neptune, but I do think this is where groups were meeting and kind of coming together and starting to talk about their vision and what they're able to kind of create collectively behind the scenes. That same year, we also saw the Treaty of Paris, where Russia and Britain signed the Treaty of Paris, ending the Crimean War. Probably one of the more notable periods, obviously, was, you know, people started speaking out more publicly, and people in politics were speaking out publicly against slavery. We saw a number of things relating to slavery that was kind of setting up to, you know, be able to free the slaves. 500 Mormons left Iowa in 1856, and they packed up all of their stuff, put all of their belongings in wheel carts, and ventured across the United States, eventually heading west and landing in Utah and parts of the Southwest, where now we have quite a large number of Mormon people who practice. We had the first Republican Party convention in Philadelphia that took place that year, a massive hurricane in Louisiana that devastated the area and totaled anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people's spaces. And the Constitution of South Australia was adopted in that year. So it's interesting because I feel like Jupiter can deal with like laws and governing, and it definitely is connected to like taking the high road or the higher vision or the higher mind. And then Neptune does deal with collective groups. So it's not unusual to see people who are traveling and venturing with Jupiter, because it is associated with travel, expanding their philosophy, their belief system, even their vision. So I have thought that Jupiter and Neptune being in the same sign, we would see quite a number of people relocate, whether that's because of storm devastation, because they were being driven out as a result of war, or they were actually seeking, asylum in certain countries as a result of not being able to have, freedoms with where they were currently living. So we see some similarities that are kind of going on right now in the world. But like I said, we're not going to see this conjunction happening again until 2188. We will not be here when that happens. So it's important to make the most of these spiritual energies while we have this for the next, 2 months. And it's just really important to consciously take time to sit and reflect, meditate, pray, chant, whatever you guys want to do to be able to raise those vibrations. Now, some of the themes that I have noticed with these conjunctions, I did the video right before or right as Jupiter was going into Pisces, even before the conjunction happened. One of the biggest things that I kept thinking about was storms in the sea. Anything in regards to that, because we have planets in mutable signs and it was getting into the third decan of Pisces, it's not unusual to see massive storms, flooding, things where parts of the ocean are being explored or being seen for the first time, or issues with water levels rising or kind of dropping very dramatically, because Jupiter is going to almost exaggerate some of the things that are going on with water and storms. We've seen that. We've seen, Hurricane Ian that came in through this last summer, really came through pretty hard in Florida and the Carolinas. Obviously, we saw some people that were having massive floods in their home. Lots of issues with power. We've also seen parts of Florida that was having like storm surges where as far out as the eye can see, up to, I think they said it was like almost 3/4 of a mile of shoreline that was just receded. There was nothing there. So it's wild to see some of that stuff happening. We also saw at the end of 2021 some pretty gnarly tornadoes that came through the South and the Midwest that were also quite destructive. And I think a lot of that was connected to Jupiter and Neptune. It's not just about water. It also, when we see squares to planets in Gemini, when the nodes were in, Gemini and Sagittarius, we see like wind tunnels and other things that may come off of water, but actually create some pretty gnarly storms on land. When I think of Jupiter and Neptune in the same sign, or just Jupiter and Pisces in general, something else that I think of is like dream worlds, or things that are like fictional or kind of fantasy, or things that seem very otherworldly. And no coincidence that in October of 2021, Meta drops. Obviously, Facebook really kind of adopts this new name, Meta, being able to merge the Facebook kind of community along with being able to launch the metaverse and start showing everybody how there's this new platform that's basically emerging where you can have this totally fictional kind of otherworldly online life, and you can travel and you can buy land and you can develop things. A lot of that was because of sextiles to Uranus and Taurus, but still very Jupiter, Neptune, Jupiter and Pisces. I think of floods of emotions, not just literal flooding, but people becoming very overwhelmed and sensitive and touched and affected by what they're seeing in the world, what they're seeing on television. So obviously we've had the war going on in Ukraine, and a lot of people have very strong opinions about that. And a lot of people, the masses, right, Pisces, have been getting involved in sharing video, or, wanting to donate and send money to be of service and to help, but also talking about that they're wanting to kind of band together and support. So we've seen lots of nations coming together in support of Ukraine in the midst of the conflict that they've been having with Russia. Ironically, Jupiter Neptune is known for like peace treaties, or moments where there are opportunities to have a truce and kind of like wave the white flag and call amends to some of the stuff that's been going on. Can that happen now? I don't know. As much as I would like to say that it will, I'm very unsure as a result of this ongoing Mars and Neptune square. So Mars is actually getting ready to retrograde, and this talks about acts of war or motivation or the media or what we're hearing or what's in print. And because that's in a square, both with Jupiter as well as Neptune, there is a lot of like tension relating to war that's becoming majorly inflated and misunderstood and misrepresented, both through the media, but also just the context of the information that's actually coming out, which may be falsely represented. So unfortunately, Jupiter going retrograde back into Pisces, like it's going to inflame that a little bit. And we're going to see that it's going to be very difficult to decipher what is fact and what is fiction, right? And that's difficult in general when you're dealing with anything in Pisces. But when we see these mutable squares, it's stuff that's like distorted and manipulated or edited. So I question whether or not it is possible for there to be an opportunity to kind of find peace. But I think compassion is a big theme, learning to be more understanding, compassionate, and sensitive to other people. Spirituality obviously is at an all-time high. And a lot of people, not just religious people, but a lot of people I've heard have like questioned whether or not we're living in like end times, you know? I have people, clients, friends of mine who are, you know, all over in terms of like the belief spectrum. I've got, you know, people who are really religious and they follow a particular faith, whether they're Christians or Catholics or, you know, they're Jewish in terms of their belief system. And I have a lot of clients who are just kind of like, they don't subscribe to anything. They just kind of believe in a higher power and they're spiritual. But I've heard this kind of coming up a lot in this last year. Like, so do you think this is like it? You know, like, are we living in end times? And so I think that can be very much the Jupiter Neptune. That's like, okay, you know, is Zeus or are the gods actually intervening with what's going on in the world? And like, are they punishing us? Unfortunately, you know, Zeus does have a bit of a reputation for being the god that would come down and he would reprimand mortals for some of their behavior. You know, Zeus was known for kind of having that lightning bolt. Do I think that? No, not necessarily. I mean, I think to some extent, you know, I don't think just the last 2 years are kind of an indication of end times. I think when I think of end times, it's like endings of cycles, right? And so we've seen this throughout like a variation of different belief systems. You know, obviously Native Americans have their philosophy of the different cycles of when we clear things out, and as do all different kinds of, you know, spiritual kind of backgrounds, periods of using certain elements to kind of purge and cleanse, right? Whether it's great floods or fires or earthquakes or whatever. I don't necessarily think this is end times, but I do think that this is ends of a cycle. And we see this also because we have, you know, Pluto at the late degrees of Capricorn, Saturn that's getting ready to leave these signs, Jupiter and Neptune at the late degrees of Pisces. Like, as we get through the next couple of years and we see Pluto go into Aquarius and Saturn and Neptune come into Aries 2026, 2027, that's when I think there is something new that's getting ready to emerge. But it's going to take a little bit of time before we get there. So this can be the wind down, the clearing out, the purging that's happening that's really testing our faith. And I found it really interesting that over the last few years, we have seen Jupiter move through some of these outer planet conjunctions, and move through these signs with some of these outer planets, right? 2019, 2020, we saw Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn all in Capricorn. 2021, we saw Jupiter and Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. And then just recently, this last year, Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. So the fact that Jupiter has in so many ways kind of foreshadowed what's happening right before Saturn changes signs, I have found very interesting. Like, we're going to lose this pretty soon as we see Jupiter go into Pisces. Jupiter is going to go back into Pisces, but we'll move into Taurus next year. And it'll start moving further and further away from Saturn. So we're not going to have those conjunctions as closely any longer. But I think it's been really highlighting, and almost like Jupiter's like prophesizing, talking about, okay, this is what the future holds. And then boom, here comes Saturn. So I'm very curious about that cycle in general and what that means. Psychic feelers and intuition, you know, just the fact that people might have more intuitive hits, gut feelings, things that are coming up right now. I've heard so many friends and clients, and myself included, that have had really, really, really vivid dreams, especially when we were having the conjunctions, like when Jupiter and Neptune was conjunct, when Venus and the Sun and, you know, Mars and Neptune, when all those planets were conjunct in the spring. super, super, super active, very literal in some situations, you know, dreams that are taking place for people. And I don't know if this is just because the energies are making us all more open. So as we're all collectively kind of more open to what's going on with our subconscious, maybe a lot of us are having more dream hangouts, or we're just noticing that there's more synchronicities, or like maybe even more deja vu, and our intuition kind of kicking into overdrive. But there is a darker side to Neptune and Pisces energy in general, and that can be collective fears, paranoia. You know, Neptune can deal with mental health issues, anything in regards to where we hide, or where we can be kind of self-undoing, right? The sign has connections to like prisons and people who get lost, or people who get institutionalized, or people who are in hospitals. So there's definitely, like, pun intended, been some fishy stuff that's been happening as these conjunctions have been taking place in Pisces. And clearly there are some things that are going on behind the scenes that we're not exactly seeing clearly, right? We may not know what's really happening. We may not be able to fully trust whatever narrative is being created, because in some situations, Jupiter and Neptune is like the stuff that's filmed in back rooms, or, you know, situations that we see on the news that might be taking place in another country that has been like altered, or we see a video that's like recycled and somebody's putting it into the news saying this is what happened, you know, in this part of the world this weekend, and somebody's like, wait a second, that was from 2006. So there has been some sense of intentional manipulation with visuals and things like that have been coming up as well, which obviously can make a lot of people very paranoid and sensitive and emotional and very reactionary and fearful, right? So I have seen that these two planets in the sign of Pisces is being paranoia, and it's definitely brought up like sleep disturbances, mental health issues, addiction issues, issues with drinking and substances, because this is the area where we're like, I just want to cut loose. I don't want to feel anything. I want to be disconnected. I just want to be able to kind of like float in the ethers. So for a lot of us, it's been like, oh, you know, we're like feeling like we've been isolated for several years. And a lot of people have really struggled with addiction and mental health as a result of some of this, and have felt very disconnected and very lost. Now, Neptune does deal with viruses, and so I think the Jupiter-Neptune conjunctions are interesting, because certainly I noticed this in the spring, that as these conjunctions were taking place, there was higher numbers that we were seeing with the pandemic that were coming out, and a lot more waves of people who were getting sick. I saw it myself. I mean, I had friends, I had clients that, you know, 2 years never got sick, and then it was like, boom, spring of 2022, and a ton of people, you know, started coming down with COVID. And I'm wondering, was it because there was suddenly a little bit more freedom and leniency with Jupiter and Neptune? More people were traveling. We had a lot more people going back to church. We had a lot more people going back to work. So I'm not surprised by the fact that we saw such an influx of people that were getting sick again. But when that happened, then there was like also fear of like, okay, other viruses. You know, we heard stuff about monkeypox, and then now we're hearing stuff about, you know, what's going on with the water in New York City, and like what people are finding in some of the tap waters and stuff. So there's definitely been a lot of fear that has come from these conjunctions, especially in terms of like what is or is not healthy, right? Now, Pisces rules also anything connected to like film, in some cases music, the arts, the healing arts. And I think it's also brought some really, really great music. Sad, it definitely can be sad. Jupiter and Neptune and Pisces can be more sorrow and releasing and letting go and being alone, and how we feel about that, and uncovering things. So it can be very dark night of the soul-esque, but definitely some really great movies and music, and seen a lot of artists kind of come back after kind of being in hibernation mode of not being able to travel, not being able to perform. And some of them have really utilized their time well, and they've kind of locked themselves up in the studio, and they've made some really great albums, which have come out recently. So I've been really thrilled to see some artists kind of really come into their own as a result of this transit. No surprise, some of the people that I think have done really well have been people who are very 12th house or 4th house oriented. So, you know, everybody's gonna have their own opinion, but like I really liked some of the stuff that I liked Adele's new album. She's a 12th houser. I thought that it was really sad, but that album that came out talking about her Saturn return and turning 30 and going through her divorce and just the whole process of how she was dealing with that and explaining that to her son. We also saw Jack White's music. I think he put out 2 albums, which was really cool. Lots of cool visuals, stuff that sounded like really kind of futuristic and weird and out there. More recently, Taylor Swift's new album that apparently was like one of the biggest streamed albums ever, first day being on the internet, comes out the gate with some stuff that's actually really, I think, quite amazing and very different and really unique, and the lyrics are great, but also stuff that's talking about things that she deals with like behind the scenes, 12th houser as well. So it's interesting to see some of these people put out some really great works of art, movies, shows, all kinds of stuff. I've noticed that there's been like a real peak in like serial killer stuff the last year. I don't know if that's more Neptune, but definitely like a lot of like, here's the tapes that weren't released, or here's the backstory to what happened, you know, with these serial killers, which could be very, very Piscean kind of Neptune. Foreign travel, obviously we've seen much more travel open up. It's been a little bit easier, especially this last year, being able to go places and kind of get away. I think a lot of people have just been kind of adapting to what's happening. Obviously, the pandemic is going to be treated differently in different countries, but we are seeing that kind of lighten up a little bit more. And that's definitely the Jupiter conjunction. More with Jupiter being in Aries, I think that's going to be people just saying like they're very impatient, they're less afraid, they're willing to go. So I'm curious to see what happens as Jupiter drops back into Pisces, if there is some kind of reason for people to have concern with traveling, especially by water or airplane, okay, with those squares from Mars. You know, cruise ships could be a colorful thing, and obviously flying on planes, we can see more accidents with that, with the Mars square. Just some thoughts that have been coming up for me personally, I think, has been like, is peace possible? Both in our own personal lives, but also just in the world. Like, is it possible? Is it something that we can pray for? Is that something we can hold space for? Is it possible for us to have more peaceful protests, right? Can we do that without there being kind of conflict? It's an important thing to think about, I think, over the next month or so, especially as we see planets from Scorpio start coming into trines with Neptune. And it can be a period where, even though there is a lot of pain and collective anger or fear or drama, conflict, you know, stuff that's kind of popping up, where we can use these trines to be able to transmute that and heal and come together collectively and hold a higher vibration for peace, right? Something that came to me also, I was thinking about this when I was kind of meditating on it, and I'm not Southern, so I know that this has a number of different ways that people can interpret this, but it was kind of funny that it came up in meditation. I was like, so what would be like the tagline, or like what would be like the motto for the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction? And what came up for me was roll tide. Not like football, though I love football, but it can be used, that term, as a sense of you keep on keeping on, you keep the faith, you carry on. It can be used for like a celebration, for like a hell yeah, or for greeting people or greeting the day. So it can also be used as kind of like, hey, how are you? Good morning. But I see this more as just like, you got to keep on keeping on. Like, you have to just kind of roll with things, similar to the tide, right? So when we're thinking about Pisces and Neptune and Jupiter, big waves of emotion, big waves of intuitive hits, us kind of getting capsized by something. We come up for air. It's a lot for us. And then it's like on to the next wave. So what I've learned through some of the transits with Neptune this year is that we can either go against the wave or we can go with it. And if we're learning to kind of ride the wave and be present and not be pushing back into it, we're not going to be taken underwater, coming up, grasping for air, bobbling, trying to figure out what's going on. We just kind of learn to say, you know what, you just keep on keeping on and not let yourself get totally consumed or taken by the emotion. So yeah, roll tide. What does this show us about the future? And so, like I said, thinking about these Jupiter transits, I think that Jupiter, you know, popping into Aries, which is incentivizing people to get active, to learn more about their rights, to be more aware of their bodies and the law and how they can better protect themselves or what they're learning about themselves. For Jupiter to dip back into Pisces, I see this more as a moment that's like, we need to go back to the faith drawing board. We need to go back to the back room. We need to go back into meditation. We need to go back to the vision board, the meeting room, whatever, so we can kind of collectively sit and think about, you know, where we're going. Because once Jupiter leaves the sign and it goes into Aries, every single time Jupiter crosses that 0 degrees Aries mark, it's going to initiate something very quickly for us, right? So we're going to have to start something new. So if you think back to the last 2 times that Jupiter was going in and out of Aries, you should have noticed there was something that was being initiated in the Aries part of your chart. So you want to look at your chart and see where that is. But I think that it is foreshadowing, especially in this next year, once Saturn comes into Pisces. I think it's signaling what we may be expecting. And, you know, we saw Jupiter went in and out of Capricorn. We saw much more collective issues with the government. We saw government shutdowns and issues with funding. Saturn went in and out of Aquarius. We saw actual shutdowns from the pandemic, and things would open and they'd shut down again. So what's going to happen when we see Saturn go into Pisces? Well, I mean, there's going to be a lot of other things going on next year. Pluto's going to go into Aquarius. You know, we're going to see Jupiter back in Aries. But I think that it's really what it's foreshadowing for this transit that's going to be taking place in March is where we are better by consciously, willingly taking time to be on our own, to reflect. Thinking about our faith, thinking about our belief systems. What is it that we do to assist and help other people? Pisces 12th house says, what are we letting go? What are we finishing? What are we wrapping up? So that might be something else that you're thinking about. It's going to be really wild to see all of this happen. Saturn, Mercury, Sun, you know, Neptune, all hanging out in Pisces. It's going to be a Pisces party. And Saturn will be making trines to the South Node. So there's going to be some kind of activation going on in Pisces where it's funneling into the South Node of Scorpio, releasing and letting something go. And this is emotional because it's in water signs. And it's also going to start making sextiles to planets that are going to be in Taurus next year. So it's where our visions, our manifestations, our thoughts, right, are actually building our reality. And this is what I keep telling everybody, is that we need to be really mindful of where the mind is going, because where intention goes, energy flows, and we're going to start to see things physically manifest. So we need to be more aware of not letting our fears kind of run off with our minds, and not giving too much into worst case scenario and into the hysteria and to the panic. And really coming up with like a regular connection, whether that's to the earth, going hiking, right? Having time in nature, being by ourselves, meditating, chanting. These things are what we're going to be needing to do to get back into our bodies with some of these sextiles that we're going to be seeing here to planets in Taurus. Okay. What invisible forces are out there in the cosmos, in our third dimension? I mean, obviously there's all kinds of stuff going on in other places within this space, if that makes sense. If you're somebody who believes in alternate dimensions, if you believe in string theory, if you believe in past lives, if you believe in karma and the fact that there is something that is kind of connecting all of this, and we're playing through some of this stuff, and some of us come back here to be able to clear karma, to work through things, right? I, for one, think that's why we're here. I think we come back to Earth because we're here to learn lessons. We reconnect with people who we've danced with before in past lives. We're here to kind of clear some of that stuff out, learn lessons, and move forward. Hopefully to get to the point where we can ascend, where we don't have to keep coming back here and having the experiences that we're having on the third dimension. Some of them can be great. It can be, you know, love and joy and happiness and togetherness, but ultimately the third dimension is also very heavy. It's very dense. So a lot of us do feel pain. We do feel sorrow. We feel loss. And that's part of the reason why we come here, is because we want to have the experience of having free will and be able to kind of actively work with that. But I've been thinking a lot about what is out there. Like, is there a spirit realm? You know, how close is it to us? Are our loved ones around us? How much do they intervene? Where are our spirit guides? What do they look like? Where are aliens? Are they under the ocean? Are they in another dimension? Are they walking around? I've been thinking a lot about what is invisible. It's very Neptune. And I think Jupiter being there is the information and the knowledge that we get from the spiritual realm and things that are around us. And the only way we can connect to that is to raise our vibration. So how do we do that, right? Well, we cut back on the drugs or the alcohol. We start thinking positive thoughts. We surround ourselves before we leave the house with our little white light bubbles, and we make sure that we're kind of checking our auric field regularly, and we're taking off the stickies. Maybe we're saging ourselves, or we're taking salt baths. But we're also consciously aware of our thoughts. We're breathing, we're grounding our bodies. So that way we're open and we're able to receive that. So it's not just like things are popping in here or there. We want to get to where we're living our life in a state of active meditation, and we're moving through life and flowing through things where we're accepting, understanding, acknowledging, we're receptive, and we know that everything is a part of the plan. When we're doing that, when planets are in Pisces and in a trine to the South Node, we can really let stuff go, and we're like, okay, that is life. That's what this is. We just keep moving through it. But yeah, I would say I want to know more about some of these invisible forces, what's out there, and like, are vibes a real thing? I mean, I think that they are. I've definitely walked into some places and been like, vibes are off, or had experiences with certain individuals and been like, nope. So I think maybe we're going to be a little bit more aware of that as a result of this Jupiter retrograde into this sign. And I think also, just in wrapping this list up, just how important mental health is. And that mental health is one of the foundations for the mind, body, spirit. You can eat well, go to the gym, right? And you can just totally have everything together, but you can just be piss poor spiritually or mentally or emotionally. So we do need to find that balance between mind, body, spirit. I think we need to talk more about mental health issues. I think we need to also be checking in and asking people, how are you? And we've become so accustomed, I think, in this culture, just to be like, I'm busy, I'm so busy. And we're kind of glamorizing this idea of being busy, and it's almost like it's like a defense mechanism to like really talking about what's really going on behind the scenes. So, checking in with people, talking to people if people are needing help, if somebody is struggling with mental health or struggling with addiction. Drugs and alcohol do have a very strong tie to Neptune. So to have Jupiter in the same sign, we're going to have a lot of people that are just like want to be out of their minds all the time. And whether that's because they're, smoking pot, doing drugs, taking ayahuasca, it doesn't matter. But I do notice that there's a lot more people who are disassociating and not wanting to be in their body. And part of it's because I think people are tired. Part of it is because also you've got a lot of people who just energetically, they want to ascend. They want to raise their vibration out of this heavy kind of third dimension. So there's positive ways to be able to do that. I'm not here to tell anybody what's right or wrong, but Neptune can be something that you can work with consciously by turning off the TV, working with like binaural beats, going and being by the water or in a bath or in nature, opting not to have as much alcohol or anything that's going to kind of blur your senses, and taking time in privacy. Like, what I love about Pisces or the 12th house is like, it's like going and sitting in a church when it's quiet and it's peaceful. You don't have to be there when there's a lot of people, but you can just be there and you can just feel that it's like a very sacred space. Same thing with going and being in a retreat center, or, going and being by yourself by the beach. It's something that's, it's almost like renewing in a way, and it's cleansing. So these are things that are very much associated with this. And I think that if you're looking for an altered state, you can get high in other ways than by using substances. Okay. So let me read you guys the Sabian symbol for the 29 degrees of Pisces, and then I'm going to take you through the 12 rising signs, and I'm going to talk to you guys about what it is that you're wrapping up for that area of your life. And it's kind of easy to find this one because it's literally the very last degree. Now I'm going to read 29 degrees, and here's why. When Jupiter retrogrades, it's going to retrograde back to 28 and change. So it's basically going to be 29 degrees. Here's my handy dandy book of the Sabian symbols. Love this. It's a great tool for being able to kind of talk to people and clients and stuff about some of the placements in their chart. 29 degrees of Pisces is the last degree of the zodiac. Okay, so the wheel is made up of 12 different signs. Each sign has 0 to 29 degrees, so we have 360 degrees. So 29 degrees of Pisces is that tipping point. It is the time where like the soul clears everything out, it lets it go, and then it moves on to the next thing. So this is a completion of a cycle. So 29 degrees of Pisces, a prism, validation. The theme is analysis. The symbol speaks to the delicate interplay between the parts of a whole thing and it alludes to the fact that the changing or altering part can affect the ability of the whole to function effectively and maintain its stability. The image of the prism suggests that looking at things and events from different angles, it illustrates the process of analysis or the attempt to understand how things work and what they can do. The implication here is that any whole can be interpreted through its parts, or that every part can be used as a tool to accurately measure the potential of the whole. In many ways, this degree refers to the scientific process and its goal to be able to understand, predict, and control. At its highest, it represents the keen judgment to highly developed analytical skills. The accent is on analysis. You can find yourself perplexed and have some condition or situation wondering how to validate a hunch you might have. Your greatest advantage lies in being objective and using your reason. Bring things down into small parts that are easy to analyze. Look at how each thing affects the other and how all parts reflect the whole. Pay attention to detail. Guard against the temptation to use your knowledge to take an unfair advantage to manipulate others for their personal gain. Stepping stones would be verification, scientific process, confirmation, validation, insight, intelligence, vision, discernment, perception. And then Pisces 30, so this is actually the last degree, because we can look at 0 of Aries as 30. A tower of strength, and the keyword is discernment, the great stone face. The symbol speaks the achievement of immortality through a consistent demonstration of responsibility that becomes a hallmark of personal distinction. It speaks to the self-transformation through a process of living in an ideal. The image of the great stone refers to Hawthorne's story as a young boy named Ernest who grew up in the shadow of majestic natural rock formation that resembled the head of a man. Day after day, throughout the years, the boy projected his own nature and wisdom onto the granite head. He shaped his destiny by developing it in himself, and he saw that reflected in the great stone. On a practical level, this symbolizes stoicism, strength of character, and reliability. It also indicates the ability to mask emotions or resist emotional appeals. The accent is on integrity and character. You may find yourself admiring someone and wishing you could be more like them. Your greatest advantage lies in choosing your heroes and role models wisely. Have your courage to live in your ideals. Guard against compromising your values. Kind of interesting how it talks about first at 29, like validating your hunches and like really listening to your intuition and like trying not to overanalyze things and trying not to change things and just like, tuning into something that you already know and being objective and using reason. But at the same time, it's like letting something kind of come together intuitively. And then this talks about, being able to, I think maybe really see your dreams come to fruition, something that you've been really like manifesting and thinking about and focusing on and then letting it kind of come to be. And that's what this is. That's what this process is. As Jupiter and Neptune kind of finish up their time in Pisces, it's really focusing on like letting the manifestations and dreams and things that are kind of going on in the ethers really kind of finish formulating so they can come into reality. So even though some things haven't physically shown up yet, you almost have to believe it before you see it. And that's really what we're going to be dealing with for the better part of the next 2 months. Okay? All right. So with that being said, let me take you guys through the 12 signs and I will show that to you. I'm going to work with the Ethereal Visions deck. Super Pisces. I love this deck. So I'll pull a card just to let you guys know what you're completing, what you've been working on, what you've learned, and what the Jupiter Pisces transit is for you. Okay, so as always, I am a Western astrologer. This is for whole sign predictions. So you want to listen for your rising. That's where you're going to see where Jupiter is retrograding back in your chart, which area of your chart, and that's going to affect a certain area of your life. You also want to listen to your sun sign, and your sun sign is going to tell you how this affects you, your energy, your happiness, maybe even your career, and then your moon sign prediction, which is going to be more how it affects you emotionally and maybe your home or your family. All right. So we're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. Hopefully you're doing well, Aries. All right. So you have got Jupiter that is retrograding back into your natal 12th house. So it's been in your sign recently, Aries. You got a little bit of like a sneak preview. You got like just a snippet of what the future has in store for you next year. To me, it looks like you might have to go back a little bit and reflect or kind of think about some stuff. Obviously, Jupiter rules your 9th house as well as your 12th. So for Jupiter to go retrograde back into your 12th, I'm wondering, are you traveling back to a place that you haven't been before? Are you going back to an area of study? Or are you going back to church or some kind of faith practice? Something like that can be happening. The 9th house and the 12th house are houses that are associated with our philosophy, our belief system, you know, what we're working through karmically, and who guides us, because Jupiter can deal with like gurus and stuff. So I think you're wrapping up something in regards to your belief system. Maybe you're getting ready to travel and go on a trip somewhere. Maybe you're going back and teaching something or learning something, completing something relating to education and foreign lands, okay? So one of those things should apply. At the very least, if you're not going anywhere and if you're not completing a program, something is really kind of panning out in regards to you and the way that you see the world. And you're starting to learn to have like more optimism and starting to realize that there's more going on out there than what meets the eye. And you might even have like restored faith in the process. And if you are going back to school, if you are returning to a program, likely it's going to be something of higher education or some kind of spiritual practice or like certification. So some of you guys are like learning astrology, you're learning tarot, you're learning, you know, spiritual healing. Maybe you're learning more about Reiki. So some of you guys might be getting certifications for that. The card that I got for you is the Tower. Interesting that, you know, Jupiter is it is a planet that deals with positive stuff. Like it does bring you blessings and it does bring you good things. And the Tower talks about like toppling something, like kind of wiping something away and going like, okay, this wasn't a strong foundation in your life. So sometimes with Jupiter transits, especially when it's in the 12th house, it can be like, okay, well that ended, you know, that's done, bye. Like that fell apart. And if you're experiencing that, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's, you know, I think it's Jupiter trying to clear things out for you just before you get ready to have your new period. Jupiter going into your first house in the new year is going to be a fresh new start for a 12-year period. So some early degrees, Aries rising, have had that a couple times. This is also about Mars. So I'm wondering like if this is about Mars in a square with Neptune. Because Mars rules your chart, I mean, it could be a lot of like, are you walking the walk and talking the talk? You know, you talk about your belief systems, but like, are you actually applying it in your day-to-day? Are you having some conversations that are making you realize that like it's totally shifting your philosophy and your belief systems about life in general? Possibly, and there can be some Tower moments where you're kind of like, you know what, I don't believe in this anymore. This isn't the path that I want to follow. And it can be something that can be quite significant for you and just like really kind of shaking things up. So this isn't really a bad card in this sense. Like I know this can be a much more difficult card, but I think it's about you realizing through how you communicate with other people that some of your belief systems and your philosophies are changing, which could be quite earth-shattering if it's been something that you have followed for so long, okay? Good luck. Good luck. Good luck to you, Aries. Okay, so we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. Taurus, you are having Jupiter retrograding back to Pisces in your 11th house, okay? So that's right here. That's everything in regards to your friends, networking, anything in regards to collective goals, transformation of these goals, right? So Jupiter rules your 11th house. It also rules your 8th house. And I feel like this could bring friends from the past that can come back. So it can bring people back after they've traveled or after you haven't seen them for a long period of time. It could also bring friends in that are wealthy and powerful, people who might be willing to invest in your ideas. So if you're somebody who's like, I got to pitch something, I got to get investors, you know, I got to get a team on board so I can get something rolling. This can be a wonderful time where you're bringing in people who might be willing to hear what you're pitching and they might be willing to invest in what it is that you're doing. It may just be that you're bringing together a very eclectic group of individuals. So you might have friends that are foreign or they're from different backgrounds, or traveling with friends, or maybe just learning a lot about other cultures and other belief systems and just bringing in some really magical or spiritual or very creative kind of artistic or maybe even like bohemian type of people into your life, and you're collaborating with these groups and they're going to help you kind of figure out your vision. I like that this is also funneling positive energy into your sign. So it's, if you're a Taurus rising, it's sextiling your ascendant. Also, it's making positive aspects to the North Node and Uranus. So it's like you're meeting people who are encouraging you to fly your freak flag, Taurus, to like go your own way, to be very authentic and very unique and very different. And this can be really wonderful if you are kind of reinventing yourself and you're wanting to kind of connect and collaborate with new professional groups. You can find people in other places that can like help you, you know, really kind of expand. Okay. So let's see what the cards say for you. It can be really social for you too. I guess that's something else I should say. It can be very social. Six of Cups. I had a feeling. I was like, somebody's going to come back. You're going to like reconnect with friends. Like if you haven't seen your friends in a while, you might see them and like reminisce about the good times, and you're having dinner or drinks with them. And you're like, wow, remember when we were this old and we did this and we did that. And it feels good, and it feels really nice to reconnect with some of these people, and it can make you very, very, very sentimental and very emotional, right? So especially if you're a Taurus rising that's going through lots of changes in relationships, like you can find that there can suddenly be friends that are just really there for you to kind of help support you through some of the transitions that you're going through right now. And it's really good to connect with some of these people, okay? Soul family, that's the feeling I'm getting. Okay, we've got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gemini? Looks pretty good for you, my dear. So you have got Jupiter that is retrograding back into your natal 10th house. Well, Jupiter in the 10th house, I mean, it's kind of hard not to be seen. So if you are really focusing on your career right now, Gemini, it's a really amazing time. You're going to get like another 2 months of just extra sweetness in the career zone. For you, I feel like it's not just about career expansion. Remember, Pisces is a feeling. How you feel about your career, right? Is your heart in it? If you've been searching for the dream job, if you've been waiting for that dream position to open up, if you've been waiting to hear back from somebody, if you applied for something or you went for an interview, that might actually happen. We've got powerful alliances also, because Jupiter rules your 7th house of partnerships, clients. It can also be about business partnerships or your romantic partners. So some of you guys are partnering with like the right manager, right? You're partnering with the right business partner. You've got somebody who's coming in and doing PR for you and talking you up, and you're getting more exposure. Maybe some of you guys are saying, okay, I'm going to collaborate. I'm going to work with a partner. We're going to start a business together. It's our dream business. It could be a beverage business, working at a bar, working at a restaurant, opening a nonprofit, working at a spiritual center, getting involved in film, photography, art, you name it. All of these conjunctions in your 10th house are like the time to push for the next 2 months if you really want to be seen and see that you're getting some kind of recognition. Interesting that you're having solar eclipses in your 6th, and then you're getting ready to have Jupiter in your 10th. So some of you guys who are looking for jobs will get the dream job. Some of you guys who have been hoping to kind of cut through the fog, if there's been confusion, if you're like, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, you're going to find that out, and you're going to realize that some of this is a result of who you're working with, okay? And it can also be about powerful clients coming back to you and people being able to kind of work with you and giving you the opportunity to lead in some way. So if you're working for a company, it could also be that you get a raise, you become a boss, you get a status change, something like that can happen. And you're going to get a lot more support out there. People are going to be talking highly of you and like recognizing you for what you're doing. And those of you guys who are partnered, it can be really positive for your partner's career as well. Oh, that card jumped out. I thought so. The 10 of Cups. Remember how I said it's like what you feel? You know, you want to be in a job or you want to be in a position that feels right. Like, you know, 10 of Cups, when it comes up, it's like, oh my God, this was everything I dreamed of. This is something I always wanted. So happy tears, right? In terms of like having that breakthrough, or, you know, the business gets launched, the book gets published, like something happens and you're like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Chase the feeling is what I recommend for you. You have to chase that feeling. And when it feels right, you're going to know, because you're just going to kind of find that sweet spot. Okay. Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. Jupiter is retrograde back into the sign of Pisces. Cancer, oh my goodness. So you've had Jupiter that's been in your 10th. Little sweetness in terms of your career, what the future holds in terms of new things. But Jupiter going back into your 9th house has me wondering, like, are you needing to go and check in with a mentor or a coach? Is there some sense of you needing a new certification? Do you need to go and get some kind of training, right? So this is the ruler, obviously, of your 9th, which is usually about higher education, publishing, foreign travel, anything in regards to like working with mentors or gurus. So these people can come back to you. You can be like, I'm going back to college. I'm finishing my degree. I'm getting this, certification. I'm calling my mentor, or I'm finding like a job coach. That can be a thing. But it's also about skills, because Jupiter rules the 6th house. Now, some of you guys might be realizing, okay, I need to travel more for work, or I need to change direction completely and like re-strategize like what my belief is in terms of work and what my schedule can be. Some of you guys are also looking for new offices or office spaces or places that you can actually reside in and work, and you're going to have to go and look for it. A little challenging, I would say, because we are seeing that Mars is getting ready to go retrograde in your 12th, and Mars rules your career house, that I could see this as being a period of time of soul searching. It's like, what is going to work? And like, what am I good at? And what is the purpose? And you may see that there is like a delay in some of your career stuff really popping up, but I think it's because you got to go and figure out what the dream plan is. Right? And you could be working long hours in a back room or putting together a project or something that's kind of hidden. And I think that you need to find the faith as Jupiter retrogrades back into your 9th. I feel like also it's a good time to connect with people who have taught you or who have supported you or kind of mentored you, just to kind of help you tweak things and get things on board in terms of sticking to a schedule or sticking to a routine. And finding that you can actually really expand what's going on with your career. But it starts with like literally how you feel about what your job outlook actually looks like. Now, the fact that Jupiter is going retrograde into your 9th, wonderful for you, Cancer. It's going to trine your ascendant in some way. It's going to make positive aspects to your 5th house, which is telling me there's a need to be creative, have a sense of playfulness and willingness to be more expressive and like start showing your natural talent, right? Working through heartbreak, if you've been having that, getting in touch with the inner child, learning how to kind of have a little bit more fun. And that energy is all going to fill into your 1st and also into your 5th house. And it's going to create water trines. So you have to be in the act of play. And I feel like if that means that you're like, hey, I need a break, I need a vacation. If that means that you might be, want to try a new hobby and like learn something new before you incorporate that into what you're doing professionally, something is going to break through in that regard for you, okay? If you've been waiting to publish a book, if you've been trying to wrap up a lawsuit, if you've been like finally trying to book that, trip to Europe, like these are other things that can also come from Jupiter's retrograde back into your 9th. The card that I get is the 10 of Pentacles. Ooh. This is a card of wealth and abundance and money. And it's interesting because, we are seeing as Jupiter retrogrades, it is sextiling Pluto in your 7th. So it does mean that there can be powerful people who can be coming in. Like there can be clients that have more resources. There can be people who are wanting to like collaborate with you. It might mean that you feel wealthy in a state of being like, wow, anything is possible. I have the freedom to do really whatever I want to do. Earth houses are going to be your 11th. It's also going to be your 7th and also your 3rd. And I do see with Jupiter's retrograde, it is by sign sextiling your 11th house, saying you've got friends in high places, wealthy friends, and people who are very creative. And it's also sextiling Pluto in your 7th. So maybe it's about having more people who are willing to step up to the plate and help guide you so that way you can find more abundance, right? This isn't really a transit that's associated with abundance, oddly enough, but I could see where, the right people come in and kind of teach you these skills or these tools. So you're like, yes, now I really can be kind of really hitting those financial milestones that I'm hoping to achieve as a result of some new technique that you've learned or some new certification or a new belief system. Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. Jupiter is retrograde for you back into Pisces, and it's going retrograde back into your 8th house. Now, recently you've had Jupiter in the 9th, which it's happy. I'm sure some of you Leos have been traveling more. You're more optimistic about the future. Maybe you have found love abroad, or you got involved in a long distance relationship. Maybe you've gone back to school, or you've started a new program. But now that Jupiter has retrograded back into a water sign, and it's in a water house for you, the 8th house, this is interesting. I mean, I think that this is quite an interesting transit. Jupiter rules your 5th, which is about children, romance, self-employment, creativity, dating, right? Passion. So the fact that you've got your 5th house lord hanging out in the 8th house brings up like more opportunities for intimacy, mysticism, magic, right? Occult studies, anything in regards to like trying to do something like that as a hobby. But I think it's also giving you the opportunity for more romance, better sex, better investments that are paying off, because the 5th house deals with the stock market and things that are speculative. So whether you're taking a chance on somebody new that you've met at a bar and you're like, okay, let's see if this works out, or you made an investment into something that could have been a little risky, Jupiter going back into your 8th can bring money, it can bring abundance, it can bring bonuses, payouts, insurance payouts, inheritances, wealthy spouses, sugar daddies. I mean, you name it. Jupiter in the 8th house will do that. So people may be more generous with you throughout this period. I love the Jupiter Neptune in the 8th because it makes me feel like you can be really tapped in and very intuitive. The one thing you want to watch for is definitely like drug and alcohol addiction, partying too much, and unintentionally kind of having like a few too many one-night stands. That can definitely happen. There can be a little bit of like just kind of burning through people, because the 5th house deals with pleasure. So if you're traveling more, you're going out, you're having a good time, you're more likely to kind of have a couple of lovers. So if you're in between people, just be mindful that there can be a few that can come through. But this is a transit that wants you to learn about Tantra, right? Getting connected intimately, and like eye gazing and like sex magic and things that relate to really kind of getting connected to another person on a soul level. But maybe it'll be a sugar daddy. You never know, right? Maybe you'll hit the lottery. 5th house could be the lottery. So some of you guys will feel like you hit the lottery because you met somebody very significant. And some of you guys are really just going to get really in touch with your inner child and be working through issues that can be related to addiction, and you can heal them. King of Wands, really? The tarot has quite a sense of humor. I mean, one-night stands, burning it down, Leo, you could. King of Wands is definitely, it can be a fire sign, so it can be an Aries or a Leo or a Sag. It can be addressing you personally. This is about charisma. This is about creativity, sexiness, having fun, being playful, confidence. This is something that I see a lot with the King of Wands, confidence. So whether this is you channeling that, especially in a more masculine way of like going after what you want, knowing what you want, getting it, or meeting somebody who brings that out in you, or meeting somebody who embodies these kind of qualities, definitely King of Wands can be a little bit more fun in terms of like sexy time, but he is a king, so it's not somebody who's just going to kind of come and go. So you may have somebody that has come into your life or does come into your life as a result of this transit that wakes you up, brings you back to life, and makes you kind of more so in tune with your creative self, okay? Let me know, Leo, what's the deal with that? Very interesting. Definitely a lot of Leos have had some pretty significant love stories, so I'm not surprised by that. All right, so we have now got Virgo and Virgo rising. Jupiter retrograde back into your 7th house. You know, the Virgo transit with this has been quite hit or miss. I'm not being negative Nancy, but it's been hit or miss. I've seen some of you guys that are like, I met this person, they're amazing, they're otherworldly, they're a different culture, they're very interesting, they're into mysticism or spirituality, or they're you know, magicians or poets or artists. And then I've seen some Virgo risings that have been like, what the hell is going on? Like, you know, everybody's partnered but me, like, where's my person? And I think it's been more so like that recently since Virgo season, because you guys had a Mercury retrograde in your sign and it was in opposition to this energy, and now you've got Mars square. So there are some Virgo risings out there that are like, I'm working my ass off. Where is my person? Everybody I date is crazy. Nobody wants to commit. Like, I keep meeting people who are just all over the place. It could be one of the two. You know, Jupiter in the 7th house is generally like, I tell my female clients, it's man buffet. Like, there's going to be lots of men that are going to come into your life this year. It'll be raining men. But Neptune is there. So it can be like, yeah, there can be lots of people who come in, but not everybody is going to be sane. And not everybody is going to be direct and honest. Like, a good Jupiter-Neptune transit in your 7th house could be like a really sexy drug dealer, somebody who's like a felon that got out of jail. I mean, these things do happen. So you have to kind of suss out your partners, especially during this time with the Mars square. However, for those of you guys who have gotten into relationships, there can be more significant commitments going on, especially because, Juno is hanging out there too, guys. So, I mean, Juno is about marriage. Juno and Jupiter love each other. Some Virgo risings who have met the person will get engaged. They will talk about getting married. They will plan a wedding. Maybe they'll get married, but you better not be getting married with Mars square Neptune. So call me if you need a date. But for the most part, it can be bringing those of you guys who are single new opportunities to meet other people. It's going to be there for, like I said, 2 months. So if you're kind of interested in looking and seeing what's out there, you can. I would be careful with the Mars square Jupiter and Neptune. You want to make sure it's not all sex. You also want to make sure that if you are taking on new partners at work, you're working for a new company, you're accepting a job, you're taking on clients, like, these people can be very pushy with Mars square Neptune, and you can feel very overwhelmed with all the work that you have going on, and there can be challenges with managing all of your clients or working with a business partner, or feeling like you have enough time for a partner in general, right? So even though this is a positive transit, it's going to kind of get bombarded, especially quite a bit during Sag season. When planets go through your 4th house, this will be the end of November going into December, it's going to be like you've got a situation going on where you're either in a relationship and you're working so much and they're like, where are you? Or you're going to be in a situation where you're maybe dealing with someone from the past, or you're considering some kind of changing in your living situation, right? Jupiter rules your 4th. So Jupiter coming back into Pisces means partners from the past can come back, people from your hometown. There can be a sense of you having people meet your family or vice versa. That kind of stuff can happen. But let's keep it more optimistic. If you're looking for love, just take off the rose-colored glasses, you can do it, Virgo, be very particular, and don't just see what you want to see. You have to really see people with clarity right now. But it can bring opportunities for relationships, especially with the trines from planets in your 3rd house. Maybe you meet them in the neighborhood. Maybe you meet them at a local restaurant. Maybe you meet them through a friend, right? You go on a short distance trip, boom, you meet someone. Let's look. Let's see what the cards say for Virgo. Sharing space, reflecting on the past, expanding the home. These things can happen too. Moving in with somebody, finally moving in with somebody, you know, or you move back home and then you're like, boom, I met someone. Ooh. The card that came up was Justice. Interesting. So the owl's there. It's like having clarity, but it's also about finding balance. Justice can be about karma, cause and effect, like bringing in karmic partnerships, finding more balance in relationships, bringing in that thing, being patient, waiting for the right person to come in. Saturn's going into your 7th house next year, Virgo. So there's definitely going to be lots of like, are we doing this or are we not? Are we committing or are we not? Especially for those of you guys who have been in a relationship for some time and you're in love with someone, or you're looking to have children because Saturn rules your 5th. So a lot of you guys are going to be like, okay, it's on like Donkey Kong, as long as the right person shows up, and it's about finding balance. So I think Justice is saying that, you know, what you put out there is what you receive. If you don't know what you want, and if you're all over the place, you're going to see that. If you get really focused and committed and you're very clear and like you're doing other people well, you're going to see that kind of come back to you. And lots of karma is playing out in regards to relationships, but even more so in the spring of next year. Okay. Good luck. For Libra rising, we have got Jupiter going retrograde in Pisces. It's in your 6th house. Jupiter rules your 3rd house of communications, cars, siblings, your everyday environment. And Jupiter going back into your 6th house is highlighting like, how is your schedule? How is your health? Where are you eating too much or drinking too much? Jupiter can overdo it. Where are you sleeping too much? Where is it hard for you to focus? Where are you losing time and spacing out? Especially because the third house deals with like, are you on your phone too much, your computer too much? Are you watching too much television? And this deals with clarity. And so I think that this is about how you're kind of communicating like what you can and cannot make time for. I think with Jupiter in the fourth house too, it's, you know, taking time to have a little bit more better habits. And I don't mean just in terms of like food and your fitness. It can be, you know, cleaning up your space, organizing, putting things away. It can also be about finding that you have a little bit of time for daily inspiration. Like, are you taking time to meditate once a day? Are you doing laps in the pool? Are you doing yoga, right? Because sixth house is health and then Pisces is more spiritual. So something that's going to be helping you find that mind-body balance, getting more adequate sleep, things like that. There can also be just a significant amplification of bad habits. So you're going to notice over the next 2 months that if you've been off the consistency in terms of something that you've been committed to, it's going to become a bigger problem. So if you're like not eating well, it's going to be a bigger problem. If you're drinking too much, it's going to be a bigger problem. The positive side of this is that it's about positively making changes in your schedule and making more time for like short distance travel, reading, you're communicating and telling people, I don't have time for this, or my schedule's too overwhelming, because when Pisces is in the sixth house, the health can get out of whack very easily if you're not communicating and expressing yourself or talking to people about how you're feeling. Pedicures, foot massages, massages in general, detoxes, you know, taking naps throughout the day. These are things you kind of have to do when you have Jupiter and Pisces in your sixth house. And at the very least, communicate if you feel overwhelmed. Ask for help if you need help. There can be opportunities to bring in you know, new assistants and people who can help you with online stuff, help you fix vehicles, help you train pets or take care of animals, things like that. So if you need a trainer, if you need to get something organized, if you need to get something cleaned up, ask for assistance, and likely you will find it. And it's a really great time to just put an end to bad habits. You've got 2 months to do this. Think about your daily routine and finding ways to incorporate more spirituality or more faith into your daily routine so you can feel like you can have a little bit more peace. Libra. Let's see what the cards say for you. Get the Strength card. It's like, you can do it. You got this. It's also about learning to tame some of these issues without like doing it forcefully. I'm a Libra rising, so I've noticed this year. It's like, if I'm like, I'm going to do this, and it's like 0 to 60, it's not consistent. So there's like a need to take your time and like ease into new routines or ease into changes in terms of like what you're eating or things that you're doing on a daily basis, because it can get super out of whack. And that's what this card is about. It's basically saying taming something without forcing it, being gentle. And as you're gentle and you allow yourself to ease into something, it gets easier, and you can actually tame the habit, tame the beast, tame the situation. And that strength isn't always about physical strength. It's emotional strength. It's spiritual strength, right? So you can be hitting the gym, but it's also about finding ways to add a little bit more strength to your emotional routines. Okay. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Well, Jupiter is retrograde back in your 5th house. Very interesting for you, Scorpio. Obviously, it's a sister sign, so both you and Cancer really benefit from this energy. Well, Jupiter rules your 2nd of money and resources, spending, your spending power, your talent, your self-esteem. And you have got the 5th house, which is about creativity, romance, inspiration, new love, partying, having fun, you know, and children. So something I would say for Scorpio risings is the fact that you're having eclipses in your sign on your ascendant, and you're having Jupiter go back into your 5th house. So a lot of Scorpio risings will get pregnant from this transit, because an eclipse on your ascendant is saying that there's a seed that's being planted for the next immediate 2 weeks, really within 6 months. And then Jupiter is going to hang out here for 2 months. Both feminine signs, also really receptive with the trine. So if you're not trying to get pregnant, watch out. Those of you guys who want to, it may be that it's just like, boom, something sticks over the next 2 months. Now, this is also about feeling more inspired and feeling more in love with a creative process, you know, falling in love with someone or something. So it can be hobbies. There's talents that are emerging. You're showing your talents out there. You're putting it out there. You're creating something. You're nurturing something. It's coming to life because the 5th house is about life. And it's basically saying that there's some kind of growth. So maybe you're making more money if you're self-employed. If you're in a business where you're working with videos or art or music or performance or anything in regards to that, you're probably saying that you're making more money. So it might be a really nice like 2-month period where you're like, wow, we're seeing a lot of growth and it's as a result of what I'm creating and really applying my talents. If you want to find love, some of you guys are going to find a very significant romantic connection. I think it's going to be more so when planets are getting into the later degrees of Scorpio towards the end of the season, so like mid-November. When planets are trining Neptune and also Jupiter in your 5th, and you might meet somebody significant. It could be at a bar. It could be that somebody walks right up to you because you got your 7th house Lord on your ascendant, and it's super whimsical, very amazing, lots of good dates, great wine, good sex, going on vacations, that kind of stuff. Maybe foreign travel, that might be how you meet someone, or you meet somebody at a theater or something that's in relation to the arts or a concert. But the 5th house is bars, so you know you might meet somebody at a bar as well. And I think this is just about you being like, I want to have fun. Now, with Jupiter in the 5th house, especially with it being in a water sign, there can be like a little bit of like love goggles or beer goggles. So just keep in mind, you can have a couple drinks or you can be super into somebody and you just see what you want to see. So I would say watch for that. But for the most part, it's fun. It's inspiration. Some of you guys are really going to find that there's a talent that kind of wakes up, or there's a hobby that you really love, or you end up meeting somebody who's like a muse. And I'm loving the fact that this is also sextiling planets in your 7th house. You know, the 5th house is like, okay, having fun, maybe having a one-night stand, and getting to know somebody and flirting. But the sextiles to Uranus and the North Node in your 7th is actual commitment. So some of you guys might think something is just kind of like a whatever kind of connection, and it just takes off like wildfire, and you might find by next spring it's a very significant relationship. For others, it might be that there is a sudden pregnancy that leads to further levels of commitment and shotgun weddings. Oh, we're pregnant. Okay, we're getting married. So watch for that as well, Scorpio. And those eclipses in your 7th, boy, oh boy. Let's see what the cards say. The 5 of Cups. Jupiter and Neptune in your 5th house. I'm wondering if this is like tuning into the whole like, but this is what I lost. This is what didn't work out, like type of vibe, you know? You don't want to get stuck here. This is like sad, drinking the wine, crying, like calling the ex. Like you don't want to do that. If you hang out in the 5 of Cups energy for too long, it's hard to pull yourself out of that hole. So even though Jupiter is like a positive planet, Neptune is about like romance and passion and desire. I mean, I feel like these two together could be like, I didn't get what I wanted, you know? I'm resisting letting go of the toxic relationship, crying your eyes out. For what you're willing to release and let go, whether this is an old identity or this is an old person, there's a lot to gain. And for many of you Scorpio risings who are very reluctant to give up the toxic relationship or the on and off ex or bad habits when it comes to your love life, on the other side of that, you will find that there is a very sudden opportunity for love and relationships and commitment, but you have to be willing to pull yourself out of the trauma drama. So for 5 of Cups coming up, it's very interesting because your horoscope's really positive, but I think that this could be some of you guys who are just not really still willing to walk away from your favorite toxic person, okay? So please, if you're in the midst of that, handle business. You can do it, Scorpio. All right, so we've got Sag and Sag rising. Jupiter has retrograded back into Pisces here pretty soon. Pretty big for you, Sagittarius. You're ruled by Jupiter. So when Jupiter changes sides, you're going to feel it more. Jupiter in your 4th house is highlighting anything in regards to your home, your family, your emotions, but also the past. And so I've noticed with a lot of Sag risings, thinking about the past, reminiscing about your childhood, where you used to live, visiting your family's home, going back and staying there, staying in your child bedroom. I've heard people say that. It can also just be feeling like a little wanderlust and trying to find your home. You're like, I don't have any roots. Where are my roots? Where do I go? So there can also be like this like sadness of having to leave the past in the past and willingly moving into new spaces. Some of you guys, it's going to be about learning about your roots and learning about your past and spending more time in connection with your homeland, studying your ancestry, talking to your mother, talking to your grandmother. And it's about you proactively doing this. So if you're not traveling to some of these places, you're talking to some of these people. Now, Jupiter in your 4th can expand your home. So you can see like kids get married, you can see grandchildren born, you could have your own kid, you could adopt a dog, you move in with a partner. These are positive things that you see when Jupiter is in your 4th house. And maybe those of you guys who have moved already are finally starting to feel settled into your new space. But I think for the most part, you want to be mindful that this can bring some emotions. I mean, Jupiter in the 4th can expand the home, but with trines to the 12th house, it can also be about releasing and letting something go. So saying goodbye to a home because you're getting a bigger one, right? Saying goodbye to a relative and then you end up inheriting a home. These are things that you can kind of see that can happen with some of these transits in the 4th house. If you're feeling really sensitive and emotional, you want to make sure that your home is like your temple. Zen it out, put like a waterfall or a fish tank somewhere. Change your screensavers to like beaches or anything that's underwater. Play whale sounds. I don't know, maybe don't do that. That's kind of like weird Dahmer stuff, but something that's going to be like more kind of like under the sea, you know, that's going to make you feel more peaceful or more zen. You can also bring in things that are going to be more spiritual or things that are connected to like a faith or a belief system to kind of create a little temple vibe, and be getting adequate rest as well with these transits in the 4th. So let's see what the cards have to say about this, because I know the past is going to come up. I can see the trines to the 12th house. 5 of Wands, but you and Scorpio, huh? You guys are just getting your butts kicked. Do not resist some of the stuff that's going on right now. You may feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. 5 of Wands is kind of like having challenges with family. You can feel like you're at odds with certain family members and you're like, where is my home, right? And 5 of Wands is about laying your weapon down and like not being combative with certain family members. Which is weird because these are not planets that are associated with action. These are associated with like emotion. So I'm wondering if you're like feeling like just totally bombarded with relationships, work, this, that. And you're like, just leave me alone. I just want to be home. I want to be by myself. And finding time to kind of be alone to kind of rest and recuperate. So I think that's the case with the 5 of Wands, honestly. And I would say watch for emotional sensitivity because you can be very sensitive and kind of reactive during this time. And those eclipses that are taking place in your 12th house, there's stuff that's coming out of your subconscious that needs to be cleared. Spiritual stuff can help, meditation, shamanic healing, Reiki, you know, therapy, like working with somebody who's going to help kind of detox that stuff from your subconscious. So that way you're actually having an outlet for some of these emotions. Okay. Good luck, Sag. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. Jupiter it's getting ready to go retrograde in your 3rd house here. 3rd house deals with anything in regards to inspired words, learning about your intuition, short trips, maybe learning new languages, right? Especially on apps. I've seen a lot of like Capricorns that are like, I'm teaching myself French or I'm learning Spanish or whatever. A lot of that is because Jupiter rules the 12th house. So it can be things relating to other cultures, and the 3rd house is about languages. So some of you guys are learning new languages on your phone. Some of you guys are also learning about like new currencies and stuff because of the sextiles to Uranus. So you're using apps for trading and you're learning more about that. A lot of you guys are learning tarot, or maybe you're learning more about astrology. I could see that as well because of Jupiter's influence, but Jupiter rules your 12th of foreign places, hidden spaces, anything in regards to the psychic realms. And then you've got Jupiter and Neptune both in your 3rd house. So inspired words, journaling, blogging, writing, creating YouTube channels, videos, podcasts, that kind of stuff, especially if it's on like psychology, therapy, mysticism, dream interpretation. These are things that you guys are into right now. Automatic writing, channeling, and anything to do with divination, especially cards, things that you can do with your hands. Now, this can also be about you saying, I'm just gonna like actively get into a state of meditation in my daily routine. So it could be a bike ride, it could be a run, it could be painting. It's not limited to just like spiritual stuff in general. I think that short trips are possible. You know, if some of you guys have been considering buying a new car, that can definitely come up again. But I think that there can be like a lot of question marks with like, well, is it the right time? And how are things with work right now? Because you might be kind of working on 2 jobs or in between jobs, and your schedule might be changing, right? Breathing, breath work, breath exercises can be really great with Jupiter and Neptune in your 3rd, especially for stress or anxiety. And if you're dealing with that in the midst of the square to Mars, I would really recommend breath work, journaling as well. You might find there's opportunities for short distance travel. So some of you guys are like, hey, I got a new car, let's go to the beach. You might do that more often. Communicating, talking more to siblings or aunts, uncles, cousins, extended family. You might see them more. You might be chatting with them more with Jupiter in your 3rd house. This is also just about your subconscious coming to mind. So you might remember your dreams more. So you're like decoding them and writing them down. Maybe you're feeling very inspired and you want to write music or you want to write poetry, or you're actually filming things and putting stuff on camera and then putting it on like a website or putting it on a channel. So if you're doing anything like that, it's really great. And I would say continue to keep feeling inspired. Keep being open to learning. I think with some of these trines that are coming from your 11th house, you're having really inspirational conversations with friends. You're sharing things with people about what your new hobbies are, or what you're doing in terms of like your creative life. So if you're self-employed, this can be like creating new websites and social media and creating all kinds of content for that. So that way you're kind of putting more out there, okay? Talking more with friends, talking more about having fun, talking more about kids too with that sextile. Let's see what Jupiter going retrograde back into your 3rd house means for you, Capricorn. I guess I should also say one other thing is the sextiles to your ascendant are nice because, you know, Cap and Cap rising, very Saturn based. It can be more serious, kind of committed, more focused. But with the sextiles to your 3rd house, you're learning how to communicate and open up, and you're showing your softer side, and you're a little bit more sentimental or emotional than usual. The card that I get is the 8 of Swords. Yikes. Being able to communicate and talk about your deepest fears. That's what this is. And that makes sense, right? Because Jupiter rules your 12th house. So I could see that this is you being like, yeah, I'm afraid of this, or this has been a problem, or this has been my phobia, and talking through it. Being able to talk through trauma. For some of you guys, it's talk therapy. For other people, it can be that you're learning that through communicating and talking about your fears, you're finally uncovering them and realizing that there are things that maybe have been suppressed and it has affected your ability to remain open and communicate effectively. And you're trying to work through some of those blocks and you're realizing it's all mental, right? 8 of Swords in this card, she's like tied up and she's kind of surrounded by all these swords, but in reality, it's all in her mind. You know, she could take the blindfold off and she could kind of escape if she wanted to. So I think a lot of this is talking your way through it, communicating, writing, you know, anything you can do to kind of make sense of it and just get it out of your body, out of your mind. So it's not hindering your ability to feel in control, and it's also letting your guard down, okay? Good luck for you, Capricorn. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Jupiter will be retrograding back through Pisces in your 2nd house. Good news. I mean, it's basically giving you another 2 months of some sweet, sweet financial opportunities, abundance, expansion of your values, discovering talent, higher earning potential, and spending power. Well, Jupiter was there off and on this last year, plus probably adding a little bit more cash to your bank account, probably making it possible also for you to become aware of your goals, really getting into alignment with your self-esteem, feeling a certain way about money. For some people, Jupiter, Neptune here is like not knowing where money is going. It's almost feeling like there's like a hole in the wallet, or things go missing. You know, you put money somewhere, you can't find it. You wash your jeans, it comes out in the washing machine, or stuff literally just vanishes. I have seen that for quite a few clients. They're like, where is all my money going? And then they realize how much money they're spending with their subscriptions, or how much money they're spending at the bar, or just monthly when it comes to going and like socializing with other people. So Jupiter rules your 11th house of friends and partying and your goals. So Jupiter going retrograde back into your 2nd house can have you partying with friends, going out, having a good time, buying gifts, going on lavish vacations. But it can also have you going like, I really know what it is that I want from life. I know what I want to bring in. I know my worth. I know what I have to offer. And really kind of fine tuning that and becoming aware of why you're working the way that you're working. And Jupiter and Neptune in the 2nd house wants to get you more in tune with, how does it make you feel? You know, do you feel good the way that you're making money? Do you feel good when it comes to your self-esteem? Because you're only going to be paid as much as you feel you're worth. The truth is like, look, Jupiter in the 2nd house here, yes, you can spend more. You can be buying more. You can definitely be picking up more checks for friends, paying for things, and being more generous with other people. Other people can be generous with you, sure, but the 2nd house is your resources. So there can be a lot of like group dinners and you're like, I got it. And like, you shouldn't be getting it. You know what I'm saying? Because you may not realize exactly how much money you're spending. You may have a sweet tooth. There can be more sugar cravings. There can be more cravings for alcohol and drugs and paint supplies and all that stuff, because it can also be about creative things. I would love to see you maybe doing some painting, some oil painting, some clay sculpting, anything that's about using that element of being able to create and build and working with the elements of water and earth. It's going to be a better way to use this energy. And I don't care if you want to build sandcastles or if you just want to, you know, paint stick figures. It doesn't matter, but it'd be a better way to use this. I also think that with the eclipses in your 10th house and the trines to the 2nd, there is a sense of like lots changing with your professional life. Like you're clearing something out, quitting jobs, changing what you're doing for a living, retiring, and you're getting in tune with like, how much money do I feel like I need? Do I need to feel this much? How do I feel about what I have? Am I optimistic or am I being idealistic about my spending? So definitely things to kind of think about, but know that there is opportunity for higher earnings. If you reevaluate your value system, you're going to feel a lot better about some stuff, and you may even awaken some natural talents that you have through this transit. So let's see what the cards say in terms of what you have coming. Oh, hello, King of Pentacles. Hey. This is the baller card. This is the big spender. This is, I've brought it in. Look at the check that I'm able to kind of cash now. Look at my value. Look at my salary. Feeling solid, feeling good, having keen business kind of savviness. I like that this can also be talking about somebody coming in who's helping you. So it can be a Taurus, a Capricorn, a Virgo, somebody who comes in that kind of helps you build on this. Intuitively, I wonder, like, is it a Taurus that's in your family? Because there are sextiles that are going on between this and the North Node Uranus. So it can be a Taurus in the family. It can be a new property, a new business opportunity, something in regards to acquiring land, like something of that nature can be coming up for you, especially with friends or family. So you may see that happening because Jupiter also rules this. So you might have friends that are like, hey, let's buy this property together. Let's invest together. Let's flip this house together. Or let's move in together. That can be something else that can pop up from this as well. Looks great for you. I'm really excited to see King of Pentacles coming up for Jupiter in your 2nd house. It's a really great omen for just more abundance in general. Good luck, Aquarius. And we've got, I always do that, Pisces. There we go. Pisces, Pisces. How can I forget you? Jupiter is retrograding back into your sign. So you know you are ruled by Jupiter as well as Neptune. Well, let's talk about the positive. Jupiter going back into your sign, it's going to have you focusing more on your belief system, joy, happiness, abundance, expansion. So you're really needing to stay in alignment with like high vibes. Keep those vibes high. Be optimistic, be open to new opportunities, new beginnings. Know that, you know, Jupiter is retrograding back into your sign to kind of get you in tune with what's your vision. Where are you going? How do you want to be seen out in the world? Jupiter rules your 10th house of career and your public image, and it's on your ascendant. So you're going to have more visibility. So when it comes to your professional life or your career, if you're launching something, if you're in the public eye, you're going to get more of that. If you're at work, your boss is going to see you more. There's going to be more eyes on you. So just know that there's a lot more that's taking place in terms of the spotlight being on you. And that would be the case when Jupiter's in your first house or Jupiter's in your 10th. So in both of these transits, there's definitely a lot more expansion. But in the first house, it's on you. So it's like a big energy that's emerging. It's like this huge auric field around you that's just radiating. So you need to be mindful of your thoughts and what you're manifesting and bringing in. Now, the other way I can see this is that there can be a sense of being too wanderlust. I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to do this, I want to do that, like, and kind of bouncing all over the place. And that's definitely the case with Neptune being in the sign too, because there can be a sense of just being like super tuned into the future and being like, I saw these things are coming, but like, how is it going to happen? Or being too overly idealistic, or you're being too afraid of taking chances, too isolated, too secretive. That can happen as well. All these planets are going to be trining this Scorpio season, planets in the 9th house, which is why I feel like you're going to be traveling and you're tuning into like where it is that you would like to be, and like how being in another culture or another space or even in a classroom is really kind of helping you tune into that Jupiter energy. So lots of you guys are traveling, educating. Maybe you're the teacher. I can see Jupiter on your ascendant where you're like preaching and you're telling people about things and you're sharing stories with people. I think this can also definitely expand the waistband. Jupiter in the first house. I've heard this time and time again. I've definitely seen this too. Jupiter in the first house definitely can put on the pounds, both from eating or drinking, or even in your case, sometimes sleeping too much. You might have very irregular sleep schedules, and you're going to be more prone to having swelling from like salt intake. You can have issues with your feet as well. There can also be just like periods where you're just totally blissed out and you're having a difficult time settling your energies, and you're feeling very in tune with what's going on cosmically in the skies. Hopefully you're using that energy to focus on your faith and your belief systems, and kind of keeping your goals in mind and really focusing on where you're going, because in the new year, Saturn's going to hit your ascendant, and this is now about committing to something very significant for the next 28 years. So next spring, you're going to be seen as like the master. It's time to unveil something. So before you kind of buckle down and you have to live somewhere for a long period of time, commit to something, start growing up, this is a nice little wanderlust period that you're going to have. It's just important to stay focused. Keep in mind also that Jupiter going retrograde into your sign is going to be in a square with Mars. And that tells me that you may be thinking about, oh, I'm going to move here. And then you realize it's not what you thought it was going to be. You maybe were thinking about buying a home or a property, and you're investing, and that kind of might change. You might go back and forth between two potential homes, two potential houses. This is going to create some stress for you for sure. And you have definitely seen this with relationships and partnerships as a result of the Mercury retrograde that we had in September. When we get into Sag season and planets come into your 10th house and it's highlighting your career, it'll oppose Mars and it will square your ascendant. So you're going to feel torn between wanting to hide away, having your own private space, showing up for work, and also what's going on with family. So you're going to feel that pressure. So just know that it is bringing you good things. It's bringing you opportunity for more visibility and new beginnings, but do not isolate. Do not tune out. Don't hide, don't swim away. There can be things where you're just like, I'm just going to escape. I don't want to deal with this. And if you do that, you can fall into some really bad patterns if you're not staying grounded. And you can become like very untethered from your body. Out of body experiences is what I see a lot with Jupiter and Neptune in the first. But I also see people who decide that they want to go and join, like become a nun and join a convent, or they want to go and travel to a foreign country and, learn, yoga and try to become a monk. So there's some crazy stuff that happens when you have those conjunctions. The card that I got for you is the 7 of Wands, which means standing your ground, being aware, standing up for yourself, standing up for your beliefs, right? I think this is about your beliefs, and not letting other people kind of push you down, and like really just feeling like you're grounded. 7 of Wands is overcoming something. So when this card comes up, it's basically saying defeating the odds. So in spite of having a health problem, you pick yourself back up. In spite of everything kind of falling on you and being in difficult situations, like overcoming that. Pretty good card. It does say that you're also defending your position. So I don't know if this is like your position at work and really kind of staying in the top in terms of like performance or visibility. I don't know if this is like defending your position when it comes to issues with the family. I could see that with Mars in the second house, and not backing down. And I would say this is about not fighting with words or not fighting physically, but like fighting with vibration, like keeping the vibes really high so you're not letting other things get you down, and you're not letting other things kind of catch you off guard or kind of knock you off of your post, so to say, okay? But yeah, it's gonna be really interesting for you, Pisces, because it's in your sign. So enjoy these 2 months of having all that extra bliss that's gonna be on your ascendant. Where is this happening for you? Let me know. Leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you for listening to my whole spiel. Yeah, I'm interested to see what like the last few degrees of Pisces brings, because for me, it's always just kind of like lots of like dirt and glitter and bliss and drama. And it's like, you know, at the end of the night at Disney World where all the fireworks go out and then you're like, okay, it's over. That's kind of the last degrees of Pisces. So we may see some very significant things kind of come out in the world right before Saturn goes into this sign. And I don't know, we see lots of karmic turnover and things happen in the late degrees of Pisces. So yeah, let me know where it's taking place in your chart. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be back on Thursday. I'm working on some horoscopes for November. What? It's almost November. As you guys are watching this, it is the day of the solar eclipse. So happy solar eclipse. Hopefully you guys are doing well and you're enjoying those energies. We'll be back with horoscopes later in the week. We've got live tarot on Saturday. Make sure you join us if you'd like to get a reading. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week and you guys stay well. I'll see all of you very soon. Take care.